So, welcome. Today, we're going to be talking about how parents can remember what to say and what to say when at IEP meetings. And you are going to have a new best friend because we're going to be developing your own personalized IEP prompter. Um, and I will show you how this will be your new best friend. So, have you ever gone to IEP meetings and it's like all of a sudden it's like, shit, what was I gonna say? And it's like, people are talking, you're looking at papers, it's like, oh my gosh. So, let me know if any of this sounds familiar to you. One, anxious, right? I mean, just from thinking about going to the next IEP meeting, a lot of times we're about anxious. When we're there at the meeting, we're sometimes just stumbling for our words, and we know our words are really important and we want to be really specific. And it's like, I can't remember exactly how I was going to say this. Or maybe you leave the meeting and you like are so mad at yourself because you forgot some of the most important things you were going to say. So if this sounds familiar, let me know in the comments, and also you can say hi. And if this is the first time that you're with us, I am Charmaine Thaner. I'm a parent of an adult son, Dylan, who is now 34 years old, and Dylan has Down syndrome. So we've been advocating for him for 34 years. Um, and I'm a retired teacher. I was a special ed teacher, a classroom teacher. So my real goal is to help us work together, parents and teachers. Um, and so I'm super glad that you're here today. Like I said, say hi in the comments, just like Ann did. Ann's from South Carolina. Hey, Ann, how are you? Um, and I'm looking forward to today's presentation because it's something that I found so helpful for me, and I think you will also find it helpful. However, if you're thinking it's way too stressful to do any prep before an IEP meeting, then this probably isn't going to be where you want to be today. Um, because the reality is, we are talking about some time in preparation before the meeting. Um, and hopefully, with our new tool, this will be easy for you to implement. Angela's here. Hey, Angela. She says, hi from sunny and very windy. Yeah, Arizona. Christy, I haven't seen you in a while. She says, yeah, all familiar. I try to have everything I want to say written down so I have it in front of me and follow up with email to cover what gets forgotten. Ooh, I love those tips. And we also have Jeannie from Maryland. So, welcome. I'm glad you guys are all here today. So feel free as we go through to keep your comments and questions coming, because we like to be interactive here. So let's look. Here you are, right? It's like, I don't know if this happens where you live, but it's like everybody gathers, the school staff gathers at the conference room table. They get out their laptops, all their folders and papers, and they are like ready to go. And then somebody in the front office says, okay, you can go back now. And you come in with all your stuff, and it's like, where do I sit? How do I get organized? The principal's already starting the meeting, and you barely have your stuff out and ready. So, just from the get go, it can be really anxiety provoking, I think, right? And then the other thing is, it's like, we have 1 hour. We have 1 hour. And that's where I think so many people get that feeling of being rushed. So right away, the advocacy tip is, remember, you can always schedule another meeting. So don't let that make you really nervous. So today I'm going to teach you two of the most hassle-free ways to keep track of your questions and input. And does this sound familiar? You leave the IEP meeting mad at yourself for not asking everything, or you're frustrated that you didn't have a good answer to the special ed director's question, and you just felt kind of stumped and embarrassed, and it was like, ugh. Or after the meeting, you call your best friend because you need to vent and you need to tell them how you were so upset with yourself because you couldn't find those right words to say. And you go into that blame game after IEP meetings. So does that sound familiar? Resonates with you? So we got great things here. So I want to say hi to people. Lissa's here from Idaho, and Allison's is California, and she said, I recorded our last IEP meeting more to analyze myself. I was not nearly as specific and articulate as I thought I was. It made me realize I need to practice making specific requests, especially when using education jargon. Ooh, that is a juicy realization. And yes, so let's talk about that some more at the end of the meeting, where we're going to be also having time for you guys to say, well, actually, this is the system that I use and it works really well. So I love it. And we're going to go on, because what I've noticed is these problems that we're experiencing are really caused by mistakes we're making. So I want to share with you some of the kind of the tip, most frequent mistakes that people are making. One is not asking the right questions. And we're not going to go into this part so much today, but if you want to know, I have more workshops that we can do about asking the right questions. One mistake is you don't speak up, right? Or how about you forgot all the key points that you were going to make? And this is the one that we're going to concentrate on today. And so I thought I would show you some of the evolution that I've gone through, and especially becoming an advocate. I've been an advocate for, over a decade. And so for me to try to come up with a system for, like weekly, having new IEPs to read and analyze. So, and then these are some of the things that I did myself as a parent, right? It's like, get a legal pad and just start writing down your thoughts. So like I would do this before the IEP meeting, especially when Dylan was young. And so I would just have pages and pages of notes. But, when it came to actually remembering what to say when, like all these things I jotted down didn't really help me. And so my next evolution was to use sticky notes. I don't know if any of you like Post-it notes. One, they can kind of get tattered. But what I did here was I put sticky notes for the different sections. And so I have a sticky note for goals. So then when we're talking about the goals, I can quickly move there. And then when we're talking about services, I can quickly move there. So this was kind of helpful because it would help me find what we were talking about at the time. And especially if you have IEPs that print out with no page numbers, it's like, what? And then I used to color code a lot. And when I was a teacher, color coding red folders for math and all that good stuff. So then I thought, okay, I could color code this IEP. And so I just gathered markers and what I did is I would go through the IEP and color code different sections, and I'll show you that in a minute. And then it was like, well, I don't have to have all these individual markers. I can buy one of these cute things that have all the colors that I need, and even an extra one. And so when I was highlighting IEPs, I could just easily pull these off and use them. So those are some of the things that I tried using that didn't really work very well. And before I forget, I'm going to do a giveaway today. We haven't had a giveaway in a while. So this is a book I wrote a few years ago that I checked last night. It's still like in the top 30s for Kindle books. But The Art of Advocacy, A Parent's Guide to a Collaborative IEP Process. So help me remember to do our giveaway at the end today, because sometimes I space it out. So I've tried a variety of things, and like I said, some successful, some not so successful. Those were the mistakes that I made, is just trying to figure that all out. So when I got to the color coding part for IEPs, this is when it really took off for me. So I have a short video that I made, I think, a couple years ago to show people how to use a specific tool. It's called PDF Expert, where you can highlight right on the PDF document, your IEP. You can type in comments and questions. So I made this short video, and I saw this and it's like, well, this is perfect. So I think this will give you a good introduction to the process that I use now as an advocate, reading lots of IEPs every week, and see if this is something that you think might work for you. So cross your fingers, our video starts. Hello, we are back. We are going to be talking about the tool PDF Expert. And this is a tool that I use for highlighting documents, evaluations, IEPs, State Department rules. So it's a highlighting, it's a tool that you can also type text directly on. So for IEPs, I love to, when I review an IEP for a family, I want to not only highlight different sections, but also type in questions or comments that we can bring up at the IEP meeting. So first, I'm going to type in the code that I use so everybody knows. We go up here to the top toolbar, and the capital T stands for text. So I click on that. I'm going to use red, but you can click on the T and find other colors there that you might want to use, but we're going to stick with red. So my code is, I highlight in green for all the students' strengths, and I want to make sure that we identify those, right? Pink is the highlighter color that I use to look at their needs. Blue is for parent input, and we want to make sure that there's a good amount of parent input into the IEP. Oops. And then let's see, yellow is for the different headings. So it's kind of easier to find things in the IEP, and also for important, I can spell, important info that I want to remember. So as an advocate, when I'm first looking at the IEP, I want to highlight some things. So I go back up to my toolbar. The first one on the left is for highlighting, and I'm going to be highlighting right now in yellow. So this is the IEP meeting date when it last happened. You can also look at and see if it's going to be an initial meeting. This looks like an annual review. I'm going to remember that. The student's name, you can highlight. The date of birth, the disability category. You might also want to highlight the grade level. And then you go down and you'll see other information like the IEP team members. We have a major heading here. We're going to highlight in yellow, present level of academic achievement and functional performance. And one of the first things that we see are results from a state test. And he did well in math. He passed. So I'm going to go over and change to the green highlighter. And I'm going to highlight math as being a strength. Under there are the different subtests that he did well with. So I'm also going to highlight those in green, and algebra and data analysis. And then over here, reading, he did not pass. So that is going to be highlighted in pink. So I changed to my pink highlighter, magically highlight reading, vocabulary is a need, comprehension, and information. So right away, just at a glance, you can see on the IEP, what are the areas of strength? Those are all in green. What are the areas of need? Those are all in pink. And I'm going to continue down here. They talk about some more strengths that the student has. So I'm going to go back to green, and I'm going to highlight some of his strengths. Positive responses to positive reinforcement, high level in mathematics, desire to do well, gets along with others. And then I have a comment. So I want to change to my text tool, and I'm going to write in here, we need input from others for additional strengths. And if we can, we want to try to gather that information before the IEP meeting. We could give it to the team and they could copy and paste it into the draft, or we could talk about it when we're actually at the IEP meeting. Now, the next section are needs. So I need to highlight, and I'm going to use pink for needs. These are a lot of his reading needs. So reading fluency, vowel digraphs, 2 or 3 letter word or blends in words, short vowels. Also talks about difficulty getting started on work, organizing, often. Okay, so here, and you'll see this happen a lot. Sometimes there'll be strengths and needs mixed in the same paragraph. So here's a strength that says often understands the material. So I'm going to go back to green. I want to make sure I capture that. So he seems to be understanding the material. And then here's that but. But, so I got to go back to pink. But he frequently performs poorly on tests, comes to class unprepared. So those are some more of his needs. So again, I want to pause and I want to look at this section, and I want to think about all of the different reading needs here. And I'm going to type another comment. So I'm going to go back to text, and I'm going to say for these needs that we want to prioritize prioritize. I don't think I spelled it right? Prioritize. We want to prioritize his needs. Some could be met with goals. Some can be met with goals. Some can be met with accommodations. Now, there would be other comments that I would have here. As an advocate, I'm also looking for things like he needs to be in the general ed classroom hearing the reading instruction. He needs, role models for fluency in reading, and that can happen in the regular classroom. So I would probably, as an advocate, want to type some other comments and questions here, but this is mainly a demo on using the tools. So we will go to the next section, which is parent concerns. And we have a color for that. We have the color blue. So this is the part that we get a highlight in blue. Now the parents said that they're concerned with below grade level in reading, that he has difficulty with spelling and writing, and that it really takes some extended amounts of time to get his homework done at night. The parents are also concerned about forgetting his assignments or materials. So that's all going to be in blue. So anyway, this gives you just a quick feel for what you can do with the PDF Expert tool. It does cost. I've been using it for a while and I've really liked it. So for me as an advocate, I read lots of IEPs every week. So for me, it's worth it. You can also look at a free tool that's called PDF Element, and you could try that tool out too. It does real similar things as this one does. But again, what I like, especially with the color coding, is I can easily go back and see these are the strengths, these are the things that we want to build on. Maybe we can use these strengths as accommodations. When I look at the needs, I think about how can we address these needs through strengths? How can we address these needs in the general ed classroom so the student doesn't have to be pulled out all the time? I want to make sure that parents always have input into IEPs. So then I would check with parents and I would say, this is what's written here for your concerns. Do you have any other reading concerns that we want to make sure get written in the IEP? So I hope you will consider using PDF Expert or a similar tool and have a colorful adventure when you read your child's IEP. So, what do you think? I just really have loved it, and as I said in the beginning of the video, is I use this strategy, the color coding and typing in questions or comments on IEPs, also evaluation reports, policies that I'm reading from the school district or the state that I want to try and understand and highlight and write in comments. It does cost, which is not so nice. It's, I think, $70, $80, $79 a year. So that's like, I don't know, as a parent, like, you have to decide if that's something that would fit in your budget. The other tip I have for you is there are a lot of PDF tools that allow you to highlight and annotate, type on the PDF. So in my newsletter, and if you don't get my newsletter, let me put up that banner. The newsletter usually comes out on Tuesdays. And in there, I'm going to list some other PDF tools. And almost all of them have like a week or 14-day free trial. So my tip for you is, if you're like, I don't know if I want to spend money on this, is to try a tool with the free trial. So when it's time for you to start thinking about that next IEP meeting, go ahead and set up the free trial. So that could work. The other thing is, for this is my thinking. I mean, you can totally figure out what makes sense for you. But when I was picking the colors for the highlighting, I thought of green means go, and green I have for strengths. So for me, I want to go to the strengths in the IEP and figure out how we can build on those strengths. And then red to me means stop. Like let's stop and look at these needs, and are these really the needs that we want to prioritize? And let's stop when we think of needs, and how can we build in inclusion in those needs? Like, he needs to be with his typical age peers so he can hear other reading models, or different things like that. However, when you highlight with red, it really makes it hard to read. Another mistake. So now I use pink. And then the blue, in the video that I made just a couple years ago, I said the blue was for parent input, and that was a mistake because we also want student input. So now I use blue, and I'm looking in the IEP for how much parent input there is, and what about student input. And what I really like about using this color code system and typing in your questions or comments is, for me, like, just at a glance, I can look at an IEP and I can say, where are all the green parts in this IEP? Because those are going to be the strengths. Another thing that this color coding makes it easy for is there more green or more pink in the IEP? If pink are for the students' needs, are we really focusing on all these needs? And there's hardly any green in the IEP. As you can guess, probably the smallest part in the IEP is going to be blue. And the other thing I wanted to say about your parent input is to make sure that people aren't summarizing. Like, if you go back, let me see if I can go back here and show that example. And also, just to know that that example IEP came from the Georgia Department of Ed as an example. So I'm not divulging any secrets here. Let me see if I can share this again. Let me take that down. So here, and I know that the font is small, so I'll read it to you, but so this is under parent concerns. It says below grade level in reading. And I'm not sure that that's really words that a parent would say. And then it also has difficulties with spelling and writing, takes extended amounts of time to complete homework each night. Again, I don't think those are parent words. I think somebody summarized that. So the other thing that I find really important that I suggest for parents to do is to make sure you submit your input ahead of time, and you ask people just to copy and paste it, because your words matter. How you describe it, how you express it matters. So when you give your parent input, see if you can't give it before the draft is written. Have them copy and paste it into the draft IEP. Then when you get the draft IEP, you can go through as you're highlighting your blue sections of your input or your child's input. And is this exactly what I said? Did they leave something out? Sometimes they'll be like, oh, there's only so many spaces. It's like, no, you need to put in all my parent input. And then as far as typing in questions, and the example here that I have in the video were comments. They weren't questions. Comments are important. But I really emphasize also knowing the right kinds of questions to ask. So in my book, and I'm going to remember to give this away today, I have really several chapters about, kind of communication things, but I do have a chapter in here that's called Listen and Ask Questions with Genuine Curiosity. ask more questions, assume less. So, this is something that I think is really handy also, because I want you to take time to think ahead of time. How can I phrase this so I don't come off really aggressive? I don't come off as blaming people. However, I want to be assertive about this too. So that is kind of beyond what we're doing today. But I always want to remind people that asking with when you ask better questions, you get better answers. So let's look at your comments. What else do you have to say about what we're doing here? So I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh, Carrie, New Hampshire. Yay, yay, yay. And we have people from Washington. So, so grateful that you guys are here. Christy brings up an important point. She said, one mistake I have made is trusting that we will circle back to my question later when school staff says we will get to that. Hold on to that question, but then run out of time. Yeah, and those are some other things that I'll be putting in the newsletter as far as how else can we deal with these things. How can we know if the requests we have been made um, actually appear on the prior written notice? So there's a lot more to all of this, and I will be putting those tips in the newsletter. But yeah, for sure. I mean, and that happens a lot. They're like, oh, we'll get to that in a few minutes. So yeah, for sure, you need to be able to be keeping track of which questions got answered and which are still outstanding. And I think somebody had said, like, emailing people back. Oh, look at you. She said that there, SEAC gives my book away as a giveaway. How fun is that? Um, and Angela from Arizona says, I'm already loving this idea. I love using different colors. So yeah, so what are some things that you have used and that have been helpful? So Heidi says that we use Cami for PDF editing. It is a paid thing too, but only $50 per year. Good, good, good. And kid friendly. So my son uses it too. How cool is that? Yeah, and see that, and I know there's other tools that I don't use. Jeannie says I can do it in the PDF received, edit and annotate. Doesn't seem as easy as your tool. Yeah, and I think what I've seen too is there are some tools that you can annotate, like type text right there, but they don't have like the highlighting part, or some have the highlighting part and not typing on the text. So yeah, that's a good point. You really need to look at the features of the different tools. Um, and Allison says, how do you organize your thoughts around the agenda they send beforehand? I always want to make sure to receive the agenda and agree on areas of discussion well before the meeting, but a lot of my points overlap topic areas. We need peer intervention across multiple areas, for instance. Do you talk about peer intervention across all areas, or bring up peer intervention in a separate area as that topic comes up? I guess I'm having a organizing categories of thought challenge. I know, and I appreciate you bringing that up, Allison, because yeah, it's like as you start diving into things, it's like, oh my God, like how do I separate all this stuff out? So if it's general, like peer intervention, and I mean general because that can apply in academics, it can apply in the lunchroom at music time. So if there's something like that, and it depends on your form too. So some IEP forms will have just general needs and then go into the specific areas, and they have needs there. So if you have a form that has general needs that apply in more than one setting, For sure, that would be a place where you could write in the need for peer intervention. And I always want to try to give like a rationale for that. So it's not just needs peer intervention, or is it intervention? Is that the I word you were using? Yeah, peer intervention. Um, I guess I think of peer support. So I don't know, Allison, if that's the same thing as peer intervention. However, you can say needs peer support, needs peer intervention in order to have, an appropriate model for communication, or I don't know. So try to have a rationale there too. Um, and that can be helpful. So, yeah, Allison, I would say if it applies in many different areas, or the other thing that I've done is at the top of the IEP, when I'm typing things in, I'll say this comment applies to all goals or whatever. Like a common thing that I find is people don't have very much, if at all, baseline data when they write IEP goals. So for me, I can just write at the top, we need baseline information for each of the goals. You can also add that to each goal. So you can do it that way too. Yeah, I think that's a great question. And that's the thing, is to make sure that if you're looking at peer intervention happening in different places, different times during the day, that's really made clear so everybody has that same understanding, right? So thanks for bringing that up. And now let's see. So Angela says they usually tell me to read my parent input or just to speak to it. Yeah, that makes it easy for them. And what I've found is like when you're reading your parent input, I find people are like politely nodding and, a smile or two, but nobody's taking notes on what you're saying. Nobody's writing it down. And it's like, no, this is not just, a box to check off to say we have parent input, but this is really what we need to see in writing. So that's why anymore, I just ask parents to email it, and tell the staff, I'm going to be emailing my input. I'd like you to copy and paste it into the draft IEP. So when that draft IEP is sent out to everybody on the team, your comments, your input is already embedded there. Yeah, so they're just doing that because that's how they've always done it. And now we have to look at a new way to do it. Hey, Cass, how are you? She said, question for all. Do you have a non-speaking pre-K or early elementary child who is an emerging AAC user? I would love to connect around appropriate IEP provisions, accommodations, trainings for staff, devices, procedures. We're in Washington State. And she said, our district is new to very young emerging AAC users. So I will need to be driving. She has her own device. Yeah, so thanks, Cass. So if there are other people in our live audience or watching the replay that's an area of interest for you, please connect with Cass. Angela says, at IEP meetings and anytime I advocate for my kids is the only time I have a type A personality. Oh, okay. Instead of interventions, Lori's wondering, was it peer interactions? So what else? I'm looking through here. Yeah, so Jeannie says, even if the parental input is in the draft, how do you know it was read, incorporated prior to the meeting? So so what I do is have parents send it ahead of their input ahead of time, say copy paste, put it in the draft IEP. So I want them to do that before they send out the draft. So if they've done it that way, then when you receive the draft, at least a few days before the meeting, you can go back and see, did they include my input, or did they summarize it and they didn't really include all my words? So yeah, give your input ahead of time. Tell them to ask to put it in the draft. When the draft comes out, then you can see if they really did that or not. So like I said, oops, now I'm going to replay my screen here. So to me, like, this has really been, this color coding and typing questions and comments ahead of time has really been the most efficient way that I have seen to have your questions and comments right on the IEP document. The other thing I was going to say is, like when I would, years ago, go to Dylan's IEP meetings and just have lots of notes written on a notebook. The other thing was, like, when do I say what? So what I love about having your questions typed right on the form is, when we get to reading, these are my questions, and you don't have to be searching through scribbled notes to say, shoot, what was it I was going to ask about that reading goal? So that's to me has been really helpful. And like I said, you just have to find something that works for you, right? This is one way. It's not the only way. For me, it's been a good, efficient way. So another way that you could do it, though, is you can do this totally without any technology. So you can get your IEP, you can number each section of the IEP, and then you can have a sheet of paper that has, okay, these are the questions about section 1 that I numbered. These are the questions for section 2. So this way, it's, no cost, and it's a way that you can do it without having to have technology. And, writing your comments this way, I mean, use your colored markers to do the highlighting, and then have a document that you can cross-reference. So this is another way. It's not quite as easy with, using something like PDF Expert, but this also is a way that you can make work for you too. And so Angela, I love the creative thinking. She said, or you can have it printed out and use different colored highlighters. Yeah, and that's what I would do in the beginning when I was using highlighters, is I would print the PDF, print the actual IEP, and highlight it by hand. So for sure. Yes. And Angela says, I'm still a hard copy paper person. I know. And I'm that way for a lot of things too. Like, it's nice to have it electronically and I can see it. However, I always feel like there's this backup I need. So I do like to have paper copies. But what I do is, after I've used the tool to highlight and ask questions, then I can also send it to parents, and parents print it off, and then parents bring that document to the IEP meeting. So as an advocate, that's like one of the services that I give people that I work with. So yeah, you can do all of that highlighting, asking questions electronically, and then print it off, or you could send it to, somebody that's going to be at the IEP meeting with you. And it's so nice because you just go through page by page and everything you need to say is right there. And, I have a copy, the parents have a copy. So it's easy for us to keep track of, did we ask that question? Did we get it answered? So, Anne Marie, so she said, my last IEP had, I'm not sure what the rest of that was. So the other thing I wanted to tell you about is, and some of you might have this, but I do have a handout that has 25 different responses you can use at an IEP meeting. So I took common phrases and, things that you might hear at an IEP meeting, like your child isn't ready to be included. And I have like a couple examples of how you can respond to that. So I think that would be a perfect marriage to this live show that we did today. So if you're interested in that, you can go to iep.today /what to say when, and you'll get those 25 responses. So that is a good tool. So let's just do a quick recap here. So we talked about going to IEP meetings, how emotional they can be, how jumbled our thoughts can get, especially when we know it's like, we're supposed to do all this in 1 hour. We talked about things that you might ask, that resonate with you, like leaving IEP meetings and being upset that you didn't ask those important things, or frustrated that you didn't have good answers for the things that the special ed director brought up. Or maybe you find yourself calling your best friend after meetings, and it's like to vent, but also to blame yourself for not finding those right words. Those are the problems that we want to resolve. And today we talked about the efficient way that you can do that, either electronically or by hand, as far as color coding your IEP, thinking of your questions ahead of time to write them down in a question format, but also to write your comments on the IEP document. So this is how we can stay connected. You can go to iep.today /Charmaine. And I would love to stay connected with you. I know we have some new people to our show today, so thanks for being here. Every 2 weeks, I do a live show. So it's generally on the 2nd and the 4th Thursday of each month. So at the end of the month, we'll be back here for a live show. And I appreciate all of you being here. So do you have any final comments that you would like to share? Was this helpful? Was this valuable? Let us know, because the more we can share information like this, the more parents are going to be successful, especially when seeking inclusion for your child. So that is my purpose in life, is to help you. Hey, Kelly. Kelly says, it took me until this past meeting to enlist my husband just to take notes at the meeting. So we had a real overview of what was said and what was left undone, etc. Luckily, he's an efficient note taker. I know. And Kelly is in Illinois, which is a state, it's a two-party state, and you have to have permission from the other party, the school people, to record. Washington State is that way also. It's a two-party state. It's much more challenging when you can't record IEP meetings. And so you really do need somebody that is a good note taker, and that's a skill, So Abby, hey Abby, she says, thank you for the great information. And Angela, she said, I should get my draft IEP today, and she'll be highlighting. Yes, yes, yes. And Heidi says, very helpful. I love the colors and technology. And she said, I wish I could keep more digitally. Yeah, and that's the other thing is when you ask for a copy of the IEP, you want to have the district send you an electronic copy, um, because it's a real pain if you get home the paper copy and you've got to scan it or do whatever to make it a digital copy. So, yeah. Um, so Kelly, you gave Angela a good idea. She said, now I'm going to give my husband paper and pen on Monday for the meeting. Good idea. Um, Cass, can we get the ability to record as in I'm disabled myself and recording would really help me? Yeah. And Cass, are you in Washington? I can't remember now. You can, and some districts make it more complicated and stretch the process out, but you can show, you can write to the special ed teacher, copy the special ed director, um, and make a request that in order for me to really be an equal participant, and I need to have a recording of the meeting. Some school districts will ask for a doctor's note showing that you have this disability. But yeah, if I would think that, I don't know, districts would want recordings too. And I know, people sometimes are fearful of, oh, are you going to use this in a court proceeding? I record meetings because I can't remember it all. Even and then the thing is too, if you're trying to take notes and talk and listen at the same time, it's like really hard to come away with a good understanding of what was said. So yeah, I would really encourage you to make that request. And hopefully there won't be a lot of pushback with that because that's kind of ridiculous, right? So Susan, yes, great information, very helpful. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm glad you were here, and know that, this is that link again for the handout, 25 responses that you can use at IEP meetings. So go sign up for that and you'll get an electronic copy right away. So I love being with you. I love learning with you. I love sharing ideas that have worked for me. And as always, like when I get new ideas, it's like, this is good. I want to tweak it here or there. So take what makes sense for you, use a system that makes sense for you. And you will be amazed how much more confident you will be when you know what you're going to say at each, different section of the IEP. So I encourage you to have fun and play with color, right? So until the end of the month, we shall see you. And thank you so much for being here. So I'm going to play us out.